Anyone have any problems?
I'm currently working on problem 3, and I'm a little bit confused about what the extreme bit is supposed to mean.
Which quest?
The third one, the one about the cellular automata.
Sorry, did I just join? What's your question?
Oh yeah. So for the third quest, the one about cellular automata, I'm kind of confused what the extreme bit is supposed to represent. Like I don't really know what the point of having an extreme bit is.
At least my understanding is supposed to be like a representation of like sort of like an infinite sequence of the same bit. So in order to represent that as like a finite value, you just pick like a scalar. So in this case, it's either 0 or 1.
Wait, but isn't each like what is it? Each generation is a finite string, right? So I'm kind of confused on how it can represent an infinite number.
So technically the strings are infinite, but there's only like a finite amount of, I guess what you'd call significant bits that could potentially change subsequent generations, like the child generations.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Thank you. That makes more sense now.
Cool.
Easy. Right?
Yeah, easy. Yeah. That's how I thought of it. Like if you go to the forum posts, I was having a discussion with Dylan, and I tried to frame it as like easy, like with S being the significant bit and then E being the extreme bit, and then sort of seeing how the different parent combinations would sort of result in the number of significant bits growing. So I think that might be a good visual demonstration of sort of the process within cellular automata. It happens to be easy, which is funny.
All right, thank you.
But I don't have anything particular to say. I'm going to take off so you guys can carry on your conversation. But I thought I'll stop by just to say hi, like I did my 2C students. Also, to remind you that only a few of you are actually questing regularly. And some of the regulars, some of you are waiting until the last 2 or 3 days to start a quest. We have real data from past students, right? If you look at the lectures, recorded lectures, and they said that approach is very, very inferior in terms of being able to get to completing. Also results in a lot more frustration than if you did just 1.5 hours each day, something like that, okay? So quest every single day and just a little bit, and then you got to resist the temptation to continue. Even though you think you may be on a roll, you can say, all right, you know, it's something to look forward to the next time you come back, okay? So you can actually break it there and do that. And you got to get into the habit. I think that's really what it is. You got to get in the habit of doing a little bit every day. And then if you're stuck, asking a question. Also, that's the other thing I told my 2C students too. Asking a question about a quest 1 day before the freeze is not really going to help you that much, right? Because you got to wait for a day or two before other people respond. And so you post it and then nobody responds, and then you start panicking because, you know, it's going to freeze tomorrow and nobody's responded, and you email me and email other people. And it's not. So the better thing to do is just do it upfront so that you get more time. So even if it's going to take you the same amount of time, just get it over with sooner if you can. And then you can have more time later to focus on your other things in class. Okay. So yeah, that is going to be increasingly important. And also the other thing is, as you do 2B and when you go on to 2C, so one of the most important skills that we pick up is learning to come up with our own test cases. Okay. Initially, we don't do our tests as much. But I think over a period of time in CS2B, students start developing their own test framework. So they have, every time they do a quest, they also have develop a test class simultaneously. along with, and so they don't have to wait to submit it and look at the response, which is cryptic. You don't understand it. They can actually just run a test on their own test, and then it'll tell them exactly what the hell is going on, right? If there's invalid memory access, it'll tell you exactly where the memory access is, because you're going to be running it inside a debugger, right? All of those things are really, really useful professional level skills. And but you don't have to wait until you're a professional to pick up these things. You can just do it right now. So so getting important is doing the tests to do these things is actually a very important skill. In the past, I think even even newbie professionals lacked proper testing skills, right? Not even now, right? So they lack, and they pick it up on the job, saying, all right, this is how I test things before I hand it over to the senior team, because the senior team will just come crashing down on me. If I give them sloppy code, they're going to say, what the hell, man, get the hell out of here. Okay. So you got to be sure before you hand over to the next person in a company. And so these are skills that will help you in your professional. So, this is what I think. Everybody wants to, everybody dreams, I think, when you're at least your age, right? The student group, at some point starting a company, being a CEO and things like that. But the important thing is when you're there, you need to know what to do. So I think what's going on now is that the AI, the development of AI and ubiquity, ChatGPT and all of those things, and the rise is giving everybody an opportunity to be a CEO, every single person, because you want to start a company eventually not very far from now, okay, in a few years, you'll have an AI system that can write code for you, and top quality code, and then you want marketing campaigns, the AI system will create it for you. It'll create an advertising campaign, so you have your marketing head, your all of your direct reports are right there, and so every person is now being empowered, like true democracy in a sense, right? No capitalistic democracy, in a real democracy, everybody has the power to run something in a big way. You don't have to be Mr. ABC or the queen or king of some place to be able to do these things. AI will be everybody's servant and equal, and treat everybody equally, right? And so we'll be there, which actually brings me to the main point, is that today, if you look at job postings, you see a lot of job postings for something called solutions architect. How many of you have seen this job posting called solutions architect? Yeah, the people that go around saying, all right, you have a problem, I'll architect a solution for you, and this is how it all works together. Here a database, technical solution, a marketing solution, all these things, they fit together. So solutions architect. This is going to be history. Okay, these people are going to be out of a job, because a solution will be crafted by GPT, right? AI systems in the future. But what is going to be valuable is the problem architect, okay? That is the real job of a CEO or a human CEO, really, is determining what the problem is in the first place. Because, that is really what the issue is. I used to do trade when I was at SRI. We, in the business department, I did a training course, and a great deal of the value development of a product is in refining the problem statement. And what is it that is a pain point? What is it that we want to solve in the first place? That is the hardest question. Like, deep thought in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, getting the answer is a piece of cake, but asking the right question, that's really hard. And that is where the real value is going to lie, because you'll have solutions. Once you figure out exactly what the problem is, you'll have systems that can give you the right solution, the best solution, right? That will scale and everything. But coming up with a problem, coming up with that is really, really hard. And that is what these things will set you up for. As you're developing programs, do the test cases, and then you have some ideas and saying, well, this is a pain point, that's a pain point, that's a pain point. Maybe I can solve that pain point this way, that way, this way, or put things together and so on. So those are things that will actually help you. Yeah. All right. Cool. Anyway, so I don't have anything else to say. Otherwise, if you have some help. Oh, by the way, I do have something to say. Hey, Sabrina, you're driving right now?
I had a late day at work, so I'm on the way home now.
Okay, all right. You switch off your video, right? So just focus on the road. Hey, but I was actually going to speak to something that Sabrina. So Sabrina had been submitting code, but without the student ID, and she discovered at the last minute that after the Canvas import that showed up as 0. And it's actually very, very important. After you submit, make sure that the score actually shows up on the scoreboard, because what is on the scoreboard is what gets imported. So make sure it shows up on the scoreboard. And if not, you should submit your student ID or ask in the forums or send us email, and someone will take care of it. Don't wait until the last minute, okay? Because unfortunately, in Sabrina's case, I picked it up saying, I'm pretty sure she solved it. Why is it still showing up as 0? And she was able to resubmit with the student ID. Okay. So,
yeah,
but
I think
Yeah.
I was used to your prompt, like put your student ID here. So the first one, and I completely forgot to put my ID in. So
Yeah. So don't worry about it. I got that now, but just be mindful, everybody. Okay, just put in your student ID, make sure it shows up, and we'll be good. Hey, Dylan, you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick one. While doing all these quests, I was noticing a lot of the provided prototypes for the functions and stuff. The parameters are always like size t instead of an int, and I'm just so used to using an int for everything. And I wanted to ask if that's more of the standard to use a size t
No.
generally.
No. You know what the difference is between a size t and an int?
The size t is doesn't have a sign, and it's
Yeah,
bigger.
exactly. Yeah, the size t can uses all of the bits to represent the number, whereas an integer uses the leftmost bit for the sign. Essentially, it's 2's complement. So only half of the range is available for integers. So if you know that something is never going to be negative, why use an integer? You can use size t, which gives you the whole thing. That's the reason why we use size t.
I got you. Thank you.
I actually have a quick question. I always was wondering what was the difference between a size T and an unsigned. Are they the same thing?
Size t and an unsigned. Okay. Well, you know what, Sabrina? If you go back and look at your CS2A videos, you actually coded something where someone asked the question and we answered that. Okay. Size t and unsigned are exactly the same thing. I think size t stands for unsigned long. Whereas unsigned is basically an adjective that you can apply even to integer. So you can say unsigned short. So unsigned short is like 2 bytes unsigned. But if you just say size t, it is unsigned long. So, but actually I could be wrong. You should basically look up the, Google or some CPP reference, and I'll tell you what the latest standard says. But my guess is that size t is unsigned long. That is 4 bytes. That is 2 to the 32. So that's almost 4 billion. It can go up to 4 billion.
Okay.
Whereas we just use plain long can only go up to 2 billion because it goes from negative 2 billion to 2 billion.
Okay.
Yeah. You're cutting out, Sabrina. So just focus on the road, okay? It's all going to be recorded so you can watch it later. Hey, Erica, welcome back. You're much better now, I hope.
Yeah, I'm still kind of coughing, and like I'm not saying too much because I'm trying to catch up. Because yeah, I was out and sick for like right after our first meeting, so I'm back. I'll be chiming in a little more when I'm like more caught up soon. But yeah, thank you. Glad to see you guys again.
Great.
I have a general question. I've taken some programming courses before, and they're very strict on header files and don't include this library, don't include this. So does it apply here in this class too? Where
we do, yeah. For example, in CS2A, why I say don't include the math library, don't use the math.h, don't use the math library, and because part of it is really that before you start using the library functions, it's very good to know how to implement the library functions ourselves. Yeah, and that's the reason why most of these classes say don't do that.
The auto grader probably checks for that, right? Like, oh, you use the
no, it doesn't. It doesn't. But what happens is that when a library is not allowed, I usually don't allow it because it introduces differences in the results that you'll calculate versus I'll calculate. So that's that. Otherwise, it's fine. If you know how to do it, you can use it. You can use the library call.
All right.
Yeah. Any other libraries we should be aware that we shouldn't be using? Or is it just
The spec usually tells you all everything, anything that you shouldn't be. Everything is basically open season here. You can just use anything that lets you pass is fine. Yeah, math is really the major thing because it is just this floating point differences between the way that you calculate and I calculate. If you use the math library, then you have to use the exact same function calls in the exact same sequence that I do. Otherwise, there's the differences in the 6th decimal place or something like that. So that's why I say, let's just not use it, and we'll just do the calculations as much as possible ourselves.
Sorry, I have another question. In the quest 3, the translate n bits, I think it gave an example of the position. Yeah, the position and the n. What do you call it? You have an n bit subvector of bits, and then the position. And so I got confused. Why is this little endian or big endian? Because I was like, in the example,
very good question. Very good question.
But then I position 2, I was like, oh, that's not right. So is this little endian or?
Yeah, no, I think we're just representing the bits in the usual way. That's rightmost bit is the least significant and the leftmost is the most significant. So it's just like binary.
Wait, so you said, sorry, repeat that again. You said the rightmost is the least
No,
significant.
just like binary numbers. Binary numbers. 10,000 is written 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 12,000, whatever that is, right? Wow, 12,345 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The rightmost bit is the units bit. The leftmost bit is the 2 to the nth bit.
Okay. All right. Because in the example, it said position 2 said translate 5 bits from position 2. And then I went starting from the right, 0, 1, 2, and then 5 bits of that. And then I was like, oh, wait, that's not right. So maybe we'll discuss it.
Oh, I see. Okay. So the reason there, I understand what you're saying. Okay. All right. Position 2 there, I think I was referring to the position of the vector index. And because you're getting past a vector of bits.
Oh, vector index. And then that's from the left. That's from the left.
I think so. I've actually forgotten, but I am pretty sure that's what it is. Because then it's not a byte. It's not a byte, so it doesn't make that much sense to say least significant. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a hardware person. So okay.
No, totally. I totally understand where that confusion could be. Yeah. Maybe next time I'll try and rewrite that. Thanks.
Great.
Anything else? Anything else? I see most of you are, done quest 2 and working on quest 3, which is going to be frozen next week. Quest 2, you can still submit by the end of this week and get 0.75 points, unless you were sick and have prior permission. That's okay. But even if you were sick like Erica and had prior permission, I would still recommend getting them done sooner, because then it'll just set you back for the subsequent quests, and it's no fun doing the later quests with on a time crunch. But get it all done. So yeah, and these 25% of the points that you lose for submitting late, they're a big deal. Maybe right now it doesn't look like a big deal, but when it comes to exam time, students usually send me emails saying, hey, we're going to get 1 more point here, 1 more point here. All of these things help in the end. Okay, so don't lose these points. Try and get all these points. You can always come back and dog the quest. I think there's points for dogging it. Come back and get 2 points extra for each of those quests by dogging it. Yeah, that's all. Anything else? Otherwise, you guys can just talk as usual, and and let me know. Okay, so I can take off if you don't have any questions for me. And so best of luck, and I will see you guys next week. Namrata, are you on a plane?
I'm in the in my school library.
Oh, you're in the library. It looks like a plane for in Zoom. It looks like a plane. Yeah, funny. Okay. All right, cool. I'll see you guys later. Okay. Bye.
Thank you, Professor.
Bye. So how's everyone doing?
Well, good. Just trying to keep up with the quest. So I think most of you probably already started quest 3, right?
I'm still doing quest 2, but I'm just trying to get the formula down. I've been trying to catch up with my other classes.
Yeah.
Yeah, these quests are like really difficult.
Yeah.
At least more difficult than I was anticipating.
Yeah, when you don't have clues in your testing, the debugging part, I mean, it just takes so long, and no, it's
Oh
very
my god.
minimal.
Yeah.
It's grueling.
I had such a hard time debugging I forgot if it's quest 1 or quest 2, the one about the playlist where there's inner
That's quest
classes.
1.
But
That's quest
between
1.
the header, I was like, and it turned out, I mean, I had the code right, but it was stuff that I had organized between inner classes and the header and the CPP, and I was having the hardest time trying to figure it out.
Yeah, no, actually, same. Yeah, so I'm back to being alive and like trying to catch up on quests. Well, because I was like sick till like now. Yeah, so quest 1, like the nested classes with like not using like the setter for like getting the songs, and then like everything from node 1 has to be done before you actually get the rest of them, was kind of just like reading them thoroughly. They're more detailed than they used to be.
Yeah, there's a lot of details you can gloss somewhere.
It's funny because I'm taking what is it, CS10, the architecture and design, and right now our chapter is like all about why it's not a good idea to use pointers with nodes, and I'm like, oh, this is so opposite from the other class that I'm taking, which is this one. So it gets a little
So
confusing
you
on
just
what.
gain like conflicting points of views.
Yeah.
That's why there's some software engineers like, you're learning C++. They still use C++. Why are you using C++? Don't like pointers. I hear that a lot. But at my work, they use a lot of C++ actually. So I missed your discussion in the beginning. You were talking about the extreme bit for quest 3. Does it always start out as 0? Is that how you have it? The extreme bit? Or can it be 1, or is that defined by the user?
So it always starts out as 0, and so what changes it is based on like an operation of like the number of parents. So like for 1 parent, whatever the extreme bit is currently, it will just flip. But in the case of 3 parents, it's whatever a sequence of 3 bits given your translation function, and then your rules vector results in.
Okay. And okay, so we start out with 0, but then are the sequence of bits always odd? Or the string, I guess I never, because I'm just getting through the spec today, but is this, you start out with a string of bits, the first generation, I guess they would call it first generation. Are they always an odd number of bits, or that's the part I was like trying to get the details or it doesn't matter?
It should always be an odd number.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the width it starts out with the width of, maybe I have to like get through, try to get the details. But the number of parents, it seems like you can have 1 or 3, and the extra credit, you can probably get your password, but then it probably asks about 5 parent bits. Is that right?
It doesn't ask about 5. It's just
Yeah,
sort
it
of
doesn't.
theoretical. You could think
Theoretical.
about 5 if you wanted to.
Oh, but you can get this passed, assuming some of you passed it. As long as you get the number of parent bits 1 and 3 correct, then you'll get your password. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But like
All right.
in theory, like you want to design it in a way that's like scalable, because like if you're hard coding in like conditional statements for 1 and 3 parents, you're gonna like create a lot of work for yourself.
Okay. All right. Okay. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, I was having a little bit of a problem right near the end. I was having this like weird issue that Dylan was having as well, and he told me to like make sure when you run your tests, like in your final function, you'll have a function called get first n generations. Make sure to call it on the class instance several times over in order to see if you have a little issue, because I ended up having that issue, and I just figured it out right now thanks to what you had to say, Dylan. So I'm done with quest 3 now, so thank you very much.
Oh, that's great. You guys, because that's when you define like how many generations you want to print out, right?
Yeah.
Then you said try just 1, 2 generation, or just a small number of first generation and see if that works or something like that, where you either asterisk or space? Is that what that is?
Yeah, that's like the printout. So one of the things like that really kind of confused me was like when you're working with the extreme bit and like, so your translation method is like vector based, but the extreme bit is like a scalar value, like it just switches
Oh.
between. And I couldn't figure out how to incorporate that within the vector. I kept trying to incorporate it like within the current vector or the next vector. But what I figured out is that you'd want to use like a temporary vector. And I have like, I tried to create a pretty good visual example that I was talking about with Ethan earlier
Okay.
in a discussion post with Dylan. And I think that would be pretty helpful, at least it was for me to sort of visualize it. So maybe if you guys would find that helpful in the forum.
Okay. Oh, you guys are ahead, man. All right.
I guess the nice thing about being ahead is like I get to help you guys, which is fun for me anyway. I like doing that.
No, I didn't anticipate those 9 blue quests that first week. I was like, what the hell? I mean, so it literally wiped out that week, and now I'm just like, I don't know. So
It's like a little bit like hazing, honestly.
yeah, I wish I had those 9 blue quests like a week before the quarter started. I mean, geez. Yeah.
I've been trying to figure out how to incorporate the recursion into my into one of my functions for quest 2. And so like I figured to you have the source string, which the source int, which is the first pylon. It's kind of like that. And I figured that you would kind of just point the pylons to the one that you're trying to get to, but I'm just trying to figure that part out.
Are you talking about like the actual Hanoi algorithm itself or the like
Yeah.
the caching, the actual algorithm?
Not the algorithm. So
I mean, for me, the Hanoi, so you're talking about the first part, right? The recursion, the first part, just to get that going.
Yeah.
And what I don't know, what helped me, I don't know if it'll help you, is there was something in the instructions there that gave every combination. Let me see if I can find that. And then when I put down the combinations, then I started to see the pattern. And so I was like, oh, there it is. So let me see if I can find that part of the spec. I mean, I don't know if that will help you, but unless other people have some.
So it's kind of like a pattern, right? And you repeat that pattern.
Yeah. See where it was. Because it said like, if try like one, like you start out basic, 1 disk on pull 1, and then every combination, how is it from pull 1 to 2, and then pull 1 to 3, and then you write that down. And then then you get a two disk. Okay, 2 disks move to pull 2, and then 2 disks to pull 3. And then I got all those combinations, I wrote it down, and then I go to 3. So I actually did that until 5 disks. And every combination, 5 disks from pull 1 to 2, 1 to 3, and then I went 2 to 1, 2 to 3, and then 3 to 1, 3 to 2. I did all of those combinations, and when I did that, then I started to see the pattern, and then that's when I was able to that recursion.
So you just wrote that down, right?
Yeah, I wrote it down, and I think 5. When I tried 5 disks, then I did 3 disks, and then 4 disks, and 5 disks, and then I start to see that you start to see that recursion happening.
Yeah.
That was my clue, and the spec sort of said that. It said try everything from 1 to 2, 1 to 3, 2 to 1, 2 to 3, 3 to 1, 3 to 2. And so you get to see that pattern. I don't know if that will help. So that helped me.
And so when you call the function, it's supposed to like repeat this kind of pattern, like after like a certain number. after like the base cases.
So you
That's
know
kind
your
of the idea.
right? You know your base cases, right?
Yeah, I
It's
got the base cases
yeah,
down. It's basically like, yeah, I'm supposed to repeat that sort of thing, at
yeah, I mean,
least in terms. Yeah,
yeah, you start to see it. And when then your number of disks you subtract for every recursion from 5 to 4. And when you write it down, you'll see that from, if you started from 5 disks and then you'll see it from 5 to 4, and then 4 to 3, 3 to 2, 2 to 1, and then you got your base, your 1 disk, and then it starts to climb back up. So again, you'll see that when you write it down in front of you. Yeah.
yeah.
I will say, so this is a little bit of a shortcut to figure out the algorithm. But so do you remember how he has like a demo that he shows you guys on the
Yeah,
webpage?
I played around with it.
Yeah, but there's okay, so he actually like has all the JavaScript like available. Like
I
normally
was
like
thinking about, yeah,
yeah, most companies will like, or most web pages will hide the JavaScript, but I mean he's pretty pretty candid. And so he actually has the JavaScript files there, like the native JavaScript files. And so you can actually open them and view the algorithm that he's using to like, you know, manipulate, like to solve the Hanoi problem. But I will say that like, while that could make it easier for you, I will not, that is not to undersell the point of understanding what is going on, because you have to understand how the recursive function operates in order to design the cache around it. But if you are really struggling with designing the actual algorithm itself, I know I knew that it would spend a lot of time. You can just go to the JavaScript, and if you know how to sort of like look through and sort of intuit the general structure, you can find exactly how it's designed.
you know what's funny? When I was a kid, I played this one game and there's this one puzzle that was basically this. Like, and I solved that eventually, but it was just like, it took me a long time. Yeah. It was like four discs or 5 discs, I think. But I don't really remember. It was just like, yeah, I don't know.
Once you
Had a
get past
long,
like 4 disks, there's a lot of transformations that need to be done.
yeah, yeah. It's basically like the same thing as this.
But hopefully I can help you out, because I know like a lot of the points are tied to the cache. That's like the hard part. So if this can sort of help like give you a good head start, I think
Yeah.
you should do it.
Like it wants me to create a 3D vector, right?
Is it a 3D vector or is it? I think it's a 3D vector. I don't remember.
It's a 3D
Yeah.
vector.
So
3D
you
vector.
just put
3D.
vector 3 times inside it, like,
Yeah.
and
Vector
it's a string.
vector and then string.
Vector, yeah, vector, string.
And then you got the
Yeah.
string. But yeah, vector, vector, 3 vectors, and then the string.
Yeah. I already like wrote that down in there because I figured it would be useful to have a reference point. Yeah. And I guess I just push the, I guess the steps in there. That's what I'm guessing into the vector.
Yeah, I was not used to the 3D vector. I had a hard time imagining it, and because you have to resize it and make sure it's established. Because if I and try to access a position in a vector that wasn't resized, and it just crashes when you try to run it. So I was hoping to put it on the Reddit to finally get my understanding of 3D vectors, and to resize it correctly so that I don't get it to crash or whatever. So
Yeah.
and hopefully I have time to do that on Reddit.
Yeah, I think one of the hardest things with that is like figuring out. It says like you have to resize it like as you descend, and I'm still trying to figure out like where that actually means. Because like right now, like my output, it's just like my cache is one off. So yeah, I think it's just like trying to visualize. It's kind of hard to understand like what's exactly happening where. So yeah.
Yeah, that was really confusing because it's like, okay, the idea of a cache is to you're temporarily putting things there, but at the same time, if you don't need it anymore, you remove it. And so do you remove it all the time or do you, and so, but it ended up more simple than that. I think it's like the moment you get out of, when you descend from, let's say start 5 disks, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you go back to 2, then it's like, oh, that's when you clear it. It's like, okay, when you get to from 1 disk back to 2, like, okay, clear the 1 because I don't need it anymore. I'm already at 2. I recorded the 2, the number 2 disks, and then go. But yeah, that was really confusing.
How would we like track going back up in like the code? Is it like part of like, is it like part of like the in the base case area, or is it like something else we have to add for that?
I mean, it just,
Basically, like
sorry, go ahead.
once the base case happens, that's when you start to go back up the,
Okay.
or I guess technically down the recursive stack, where you are returning that value to the thing that called it. That returns a value to the thing that called it. If you look at the algorithm, there's normally like, I think 3 steps to it. And so it's like at the end of each of your steps is when the coming back up happens.
Okay. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
That's when you recurse it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, funnily enough, I do have something very close to it, but I'm just trying to figure out like how it works in the tester too, so yeah.
I actually, just to give you guys, maybe make you feel a little bit better, I felt like 2 was a lot harder than 3 personally, or at least I felt like I could get to the end of 3 a lot easier. And then, is some fine tuning at the end. Whereas with 2, I feel like you spend a lot of time right at the beginning trying to get it to even do anything. Once you get through that, once you get through 2, I think you'll have an easier time with the next one.
Something I've noticed that's kind of interesting is like as I've been going through the quest, I find that I'm spending like more time like on pen and paper, like drawing out the different structures than I am actually like programming the thing. Which I guess is a
It's
little
more an algorithmic thing in some cases, like Quest 2, and I'm sure Quest 3 has its own. Like you're just trying to solve a mathematical problem, basically, I guess.
there's all like these like relationships and rules sort of that you have to like derive in order to like create like a, I use the word scalable, but I guess it's sort of like a universal application, I guess, like whether you have 1 parent or 3 parents or 5 parents, like it always needs to be the correct size. And there's some relationship between the size and the number of parents, but you just have to derive what that relationship is, but it will stay consistent through all the different numbers.
Well,
And oh, go ahead, Robert.
if Quest 3 is easy, I wonder what Quest 4 is like.
I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
I actually thought that I had more problems understanding the output of the auto grader or what the grader was telling me rather than actually doing the code, because it is very cryptic and it's not giving you all of the details about like what it did prior to getting that result and stuff like that. So you kind of have to think creatively about what else could be happening. And actually, Ryan, the solution that I stumbled upon that we were talking about was like completely accidental because I had a couple different I had submitted it several times, and each time it was trying out some different end generations, and so I had each of those copied into my own code, and then so I was like going through them and through my main, and that was when I realized, oh wait, the first one is totally right, but actually this one is wrong. And then I was like,
Yeah,
must,
how cool.
must
It
be
was such
something
a,
to do.
yeah, it was, I like when I found out like what I was doing wrong, I was like, oh, dude, are you serious? Oh.
Yeah, it's such a stupid, simple thing. But like
know.
I didn't even think about that, like that it would be run multiple times or anything.
Yeah, I mean, because I mean, in the like you think with the constructor, it fixes it, but you don't call a constructor if you're
Yep.
doing on the same class instance. Oh man.
Yeah,
One of the
sometimes
things,
they can get you.
yeah. One of the things that I'll say like that I did wrong is like I didn't read the spec carefully enough, and I tried to like scale up my vectors without using a temporary vector, where like let's say like you'll find that like when you first create like the first generation, you like seed it with a single value. And if you had 3 parents, like you need to like read three like 3 values, and you need the extreme bits in order to calculate like 3. Like let's say you have 1, you need a 0 0 0 0. But I tried to build that within the actual generations themselves, but the autograder did not like that. It was like if it's one significant digit, like it's one seed, so it's only one significant bit. I don't want to see any extremities, and so I had to sort of rewrite like the whole, like the process was similar, but just be aware, like you have to be pretty like precise with what he's asking you. Can't really get around it. Okay, guys. So I'll be available in the subreddit all of this week. Dylan, I'm sure I'll probably be contacting you about Quest 4 any day now. But I've got to go get dinner started. It's a little late for me, guys. So I'll catch you guys
Right.
later.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for your help.
Of course. Bye, guys.
Do any of you guys have more specific questions I can help on Quest 2 or whatever quest you're on? Otherwise, I'm gonna hop off as well.
I guess another thing, again, details are such a thing with these specs. I don't know, they're intentionally vague, I guess, or but they talk about a valid case in Quest 3, making sure things are valid. But I think maybe it did say that I just want to confirm, like making sure things are valid if the number, God, I'm so confused. The number of parents doesn't exceed the max number of parents or something like that.
Where did it say this?
It's in the spec. They talk about is valid. Let me see. I'm trying to look through the spec.
Well, parents.
God,
Oh,
there
yeah,
is
yeah.
valid.
In your set rule function.
So to make sure that because your rules are specific to the number of parents, right? So like one parent would be 4 rules, I guess. 3 parents is 256. And So I guess that's what makes, because I don't know, I don't know what the main function is going to look like or how I guess when you create the constructor, you have to put in the rule, but then that rule has to match the number of parents. Again, yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, you're very close.
Okay.
It is a function of how many parents you have, because
Okay.
that affects how big your rule vector will be.
Okay.
So if you're, you basically short circuited it. And if you're trying to input a rule that is too big for the number of parents you have, then it'll just
Right.
like cut you off right away and say this is not valid. It does
Okay.
construct it, but it's invalid.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Because
What is the
have you
oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
have you looked at the have you looked up cellular automata on like Wikipedia or anything?
I looked at the canvas. The module did have something, and then there was a YouTube video. This guy started going into it on Wolfram's. So he did a nice drawing of it. So yeah,
Well, so the
I didn't get to
rules
Wikipedia.
the rules are sequential from 0 to 255.
Right, for a 3-bit pair, for a 3-parent.
Right.
Yeah.
So they directly relate to how many parents there are. So that's what you're checking when you're trying to decide if something is valid. Like you were saying, for a
Oh,
three-parent structure, if you're trying to put in a rule that is, if your rule is 256,
yeah.
then that's not going to work because it's too big to fit in
Okay.
a
It's too big.
three space vector, basically.
Okay. Okay.
And then because
Alright.
you're going to use that vector to decide what to change for subsequent generations.
Mhm.
So it has 3 spots. So you can always say, okay, if this is a 1 and this is a 0 and this is a 1, what should the child right here be?
Okay. Okay.
And so it you'll see it's pretty straightforward, a function
Alright.
of the parents.
All right, I'm gonna pop out of this node. Bye.
All right. Bye.
See you, Robert.
See ya.
Well, if I have more questions, I'll be on subreddit. So, all right. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Yeah, as I go along quest 1, I might have some questions on quest 1 as I do some stuff, even though they might be a little basic because, yeah, getting back on track.
Yeah, it's no problem. I am chronically online, so feel free to post anything onto the subreddit and I'll try to I try to reply really quickly, but I also feel like it's part of the extra credit for everyone. So I try not to be the only person replying to everything, so other people have a chance to say something and get some points. But I do normally see every post that comes pretty quickly. But if nobody has any other questions, I'm gonna get off too.
I guess I did have one like random question. Like for quest 1, like I know how like in the mini quest, like it was like there's a sequential order to the mini quests, but because of like the nested playlists and stuff, it's not sequential. I feel like as I go along, like there are little pieces that it's like, oh yeah, like I forgot to do that one thing, and like it's not feeling like sequential. Like, oh yeah, like I had like a 2-string error, but 2-string is like at the end, right? And then
I
is that
remember with that one specifically, it's the 2 and 3 that I've done. It wasn't quite like that. You could sort of do one function at a time, but that quest seemed like you sort of had to have the whole thing kind of built out beforehand.
all right? Good to
But
know.
you are right. It is kind of like, oh, I'm having an issue on this thing that I thought was already done, or something that isn't even started yet.
Yeah, no, I thought I had like a lot of it built out, and I would turn it in. It's like, oh, like something really tiny messed up and it didn't even like run like all the code that I wrote. And I was like, oh, right, it's that one piece. Yeah. And so I'm like trying to like backwards debug, but it's nice that like the next like 2 and 3 are a little more like sequential, I guess.
Is that the playlist quest?
Yeah. Was that hard for you guys? Was it easy?
When I do remember having an issue where what I had in my playlist was like off by 1 with the grader. And that stumped me for a little while. I don't know if you'll end up having something like that, but what helped me in the end was basically like changing my toString function so that it matched the auto grader like explicitly, because he had some extra things where he would like show what the current is and what the head is and what the tail is, like a little icon, and that wasn't in the specs for our 2print. So I put that in there, and I think I even copied all of the strings from like whatever test it was and input them into my playlist. And then then you can actually debug it and see, oh, I didn't set this variable properly in the constructor. I think it was a constructor issue with mine, but it was something pretty simple.
Yeah, I'm kind of afraid of that as I go along. I'm like, I know like it's probably going to be a constructor destructor. Like I said, the constructor sometimes destructor issue down the like at the end that'll trip me up. Yeah, it's
I
like
think the biggest I think the biggest thing for quest 1 for me was it's similar to like the blue quest 9, but because like there's the extra like inner classes, it was like hard to know what exactly each thing was doing. So it's like kind of like understanding like what like the node is doing and like what's the song entry is doing. And like you have to use those specific function calls again into your functions rather than just like directly accessing them, which is like a little different. And because like those functions itself could have the errors, like your new function has the error now. So it's kind of like working with the small, like making sure your small pieces are doing exactly what the specs are like wanting you to do. And then like the rest should be fine. Like you should be able to do the same logic, but it's written differently.
Yeah, no, it was hard to wrap my brain around like going from quest 9 to like, oh, okay, like I can like piece things together to like, oh, it's not a struct anymore. Like it's a whole nother class. And I'm like, wait, like what class am I don't know why that just throws me off, but it's been like, yeah, the nested class thing. And like, yeah, like, right, instead of just assigning like the data of the node or just assigning everything, it's like, oh, like you need to use functions to assign these things. And yeah, I'm like, oh, right, I'll use the function. But then I looked back, I'm like, oh, my function's empty. That's why it didn't work. So I feel like I have to be a lot more careful. Or like, yeah, even like my list is the same, but I'm like, oh, I forgot to tweak the size and like the second function inside of the function.
Yeah, I think understanding like I had trouble with the destructors because I didn't like fully understand what was happening. But I think the destructors are like the biggest thing for me, like what should be destructed where.
Yeah, actually that's something I kind of like half played with the destructor, and I am trying to reach the point where I'm like, oh, okay, like I went like that's the only reason I'm failing out. But yeah, it's hard because they like everything has to be accessed like through another function, so you can't actually like, I don't know, just not having everything there for me makes it harder as a programmer, I guess. Is that like kind of encapsulation also like a theme in like nested classes, like a theme for the quests 2 and 3 guys?
No.
No, not at all. I've actually never even done that sort of nested classing other than that one quest.
Okay, good. I'm glad, because like I feel like I always get tripped up on like a small thing that I'm just like, I can't get over this, and like harder things I'm like, oh, this makes sense. So I'm glad that that's not going to be a feature hurdle.
No, there will be different harder hurdles for you to handle.
Yeah, probably yes. Any I guess any advice for take a note on the destructor. Any advice for quest 1, I guess? That like was like caused you pain?
a lot of broken pointers issues that I got. But the key part was testing, making sure I tested every combination, and it tripped me up when it just the auto grader just says, oh, broken pointer. Like, thanks. And nothing, no clue, no hint. So it just went back to, okay, let me try every combination that I could think of. When you add a node, remove a node, start out with one node and then two nodes, three. If you have three nodes, when you insert in any part of that, whether it's in the middle, in the beginning, in the end, test every part, and then the remove function, if you're removing the end or the second to the end, and just go up to 3 nodes. You don't have to go crazy. And that's when I found my broken pointer, when I tested every combination in my code, and I was like, there it is, there's my broken pointer. And then that's when I got through it. So yeah, because there's the autograder won't tell you what's going on. So
Yeah, for me, it was a similar thing. The main issue was the state of the member variables, the head pointer, the tail pointer, the previous current pointer, and actually the size too. Make sure that you're setting those in the constructor, that you're resetting them when you need to. And like she said, in edge cases, like one that I was messed up on was, I think the tail pointer is one that you sort of have to reset manually more often than the other pieces. So yeah, just keep track of like the whole state of the thing. That's probably where you'll get broken pointer issues.
And then also probably like going back to the destructors, just make sure that you're not like destroying something that you need for like the future. Like I kept on like destroying like something I had to use to like keep on going in like the list, and I like couldn't figure that, like I didn't understand like why it wasn't like it just gave a broken pointer. But then yeah, like making like especially really distracting, because like you're looping through it, make sure that like what you're like using as you're looping is like with you until you actually don't need it anymore.
That's good, really great advice. Thank you everybody for your help.
For sure.
yeah, just go on Reddit. Then yeah, there'll be people to respond. Yeah. So as you go along.
I know, but
Yeah.
I'm like, everyone's on like the quest 2 and 3, and I'm like, here's quest 1.
No, it's okay.
We're all struggling.
Yeah.
Thanks. We'll do. You'll see me pop in sometime in the next like day or two as I'm like middle of quest. So I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Thanks. And so hopefully I'll catch up and I'll be able to equally help you guys too soon after I get these things turned in.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna head off. I'll see you guys next week.
All right. Thanks. Thanks, everyone.
See you guys.
Hey.